Get out of my classroom. You don't belong here. The words cut through the silence like a blade. Mrs. Raymond's voice thundered, loud enough for the entire class to hear. No one moved. No one breathed. Aaliyah stood at the front of the room, frozen. Her eyes wide, her mouth slightly open. For a second, she couldn't tell if she was dreaming or awake. Her hands trembled as they gripped the strap of her worn-out backpack. One of the zippers was broken. The fabric was frayed. But she held onto it like it was her last piece of dignity. Slowly, she turned her gaze toward the rest of the class. Some students looked confused. A few looked away. And a couple smirked. But Aaliyah? She said nothing. Not because she wasn't hurt. But because she was used to it. Without a word, she bent down, picked up her weathered notebook, and walked out of the room, her shoulders stiff, her steps silent. That was the thing about Aaliyah. She never argued. Never raised her voice. Because what people said to her, they'd said before. From shelter workers. From kids at school. From strangers in stores. Now, even from a teacher. But what no one knew, what no one even bothered to ask, was why she looked tired. Why her shoes didn't match. Why she wore the same hoodie 3 days in a row. Or why she sometimes nodded off during lunch. They didn't know the truth. That 14-year-old Aaliyah had been homeless for over a year. Her mother had passed away after a long illness. Cancer. And her father? One day he said he'd be right back. He never returned. With no other relatives willing to take her, Aaliyah bounced from one shelter to another. Some nights, she stayed in bus stations. Some nights, in public libraries, tucked in a corner with a blanket over her legs, pretending to read. Other nights, she'd sleep on the back of a city bus, riding the same route until morning. And yet, she never missed school. Not once. She walked miles in the cold. Took 3 buses. Skipped meals. Because to her, school was more than a building. It was the only place she still felt normal. A desk. A book. A teacher's voice. That was her escape. She didn't have money. She didn't have a home. But she had dreams. And she was determined to learn. Even when she was tired. Even when her stomach growled. Even when kids whispered behind her back. She never gave up. Until now. Because when a teacher, someone meant to lift you up, pushes you out. Where do you go? That afternoon, Aaliyah didn't go back to the shelter. She didn't get on a bus. She sat behind the school gym. Alone. Her notebook open on her lap. Pages filled with equations, vocabulary words, and journal entries she never shared. On the inside cover, she had written a quote in bold letters. My circumstances do not define me. My choices do. It was something her mother used to say. As she sat in the cold, fighting back tears, she remembered her mom's voice. Soft. Warm. Fierce. You are meant to do great things, Aaliyah. Even when the world tells you you're nothing, especially then, you must rise. She wiped her eyes. Pulled her pencil from her pocket. And began to write. Every night, after finishing her homework under the flickering lights of the shelter's common room, Aaliyah would pull out a worn, battered old notebook, its cover bent, the corners taped, pages crammed with strange sketches, scribbled formulas, and diagrams no one else understood. To most, it just looked like messy doodles. To Aaliyah, it was everything. Because she wasn't just solving math problems. She was designing something. Something big. Something that could change lives. You see, Aaliyah had a dream. Not just to escape her circumstances. Not just to graduate or find a better life for herself. Her dream was to build a device, cheap, small, and powered entirely by sunlight, that could purify dirty water. That's it. A simple, brilliant idea. Because in her time moving through shelters, abandoned buildings, and public restrooms, she had seen it too many times. Kids drinking from rusted sinks. Mothers mixing formula with questionable tap water. People getting sick. And every time she saw it, her heart would ache. One night, while staring into a cracked bathroom mirror, she whispered to herself, "If no one else is going to fix it, I will." So she started learning, quietly, obsessively. She watched YouTube videos on chemistry, renewable energy, and solar engineering using the shelter's shared computer. She borrowed textbooks from the school library, books far beyond her grade level. And she went digging. Literally. After school, she'd visit junkyards. She knew the workers there. They'd wave when she showed up, dirt on her sleeves, eyes wide with purpose. She dug through piles of scrap, looking for anything useful. Broken laptop fans. Shattered calculator screens. Old wires, forgotten circuit boards, batteries. Even the plastic case from an old DVD player. To most, it was trash. To Aaliyah, it was raw material. She stored everything in a hidden cardboard box behind the school's gymnasium. Every lunch break, every spare moment, she'd sneak into the science lab, assembling, soldering, testing. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it exploded. But she never stopped trying. And surprisingly, in this whole journey, only one adult ever noticed what she was doing. Not a teacher. Not a guidance counselor. Not a principal. But the school janitor. Mr. Jenkins. A quiet man with gray in his beard and kind eyes. One night, Aaliyah had stayed late at school. She thought everyone had left. She was hunched over a table in the lab, trying to attach a solar panel to an old USB filter she'd built. She didn't hear the door open. Didn't notice the footsteps. Then, a voice said, "Need help wiring that battery?" Startled, she looked up. Mr. Jenkins stood in the doorway holding a dustpan. He wasn't angry. He wasn't confused. Just curious. She didn't know what to say at first. Then slowly, she nodded. From that moment on, he became her quiet mentor. He never asked too many questions. Never pitted her. Never treated her like she was broken. Instead, he taught her how to safely handle wires. How to recognize voltage ratings. How to use the school's old soldering gun without burning herself. Some nights, he'd just sit nearby, sweeping or fixing a doorknob while she worked. And if she got frustrated, he'd simply say, "Every great idea started with someone being told it was impossible." He believed in her. Not with big speeches or grand gestures. But with time. Patience. Presence. And for Aaliyah, that meant more than any charity or award ever could. In that lab, under flickering lights and dusty cabinets, a homeless girl and a school janitor were building something more powerful than just a water purifier. They were building hope. Let me know when you're ready for the next scene, thumbnail prompt ideas, or video scripting elements. A month later, everything changed, because of a flyer. It was pinned crookedly to the school bulletin board, flapping slightly as the hallway doors opened and closed. Aaliyah walked past it at first. But then something made her stop. She turned back, reading the bold, colorful letters. National Young Innovators Science Award, $50,000 scholarship. Recognition. Mentorship. A chance to change the world. She read it again. And again. A $50,000 scholarship? Could this be real? Her heart began to race. But almost instantly, that flicker of hope was buried beneath doubt. Who was she? A homeless girl. No lab. No team. No real address. Other kids had teachers and parents. Resources and money. She had duct tape and old calculator parts. Still, something inside her wouldn't let it go. She tore off one of the little tabs at the bottom of the flyer and tucked it into her notebook. And later that evening, as she sat in the shelter with her notebook open and her invention in pieces beside her, she whispered to herself. Why not me? She brought the idea to Mr. Jenkins the next day. He didn't laugh. He didn't hesitate. He simply asked. When's the deadline? Within hours, he was helping her fill out the paperwork. He printed out forms from the school's old computer. He helped her edit her application essay. And when the entry fee came up, he pulled out his wallet and paid it. No one ever invested in me, he said softly. But I'm investing in you. Aaliyah blinked back tears. She didn't say thank you, not because she wasn't grateful, but because there weren't words big enough. The night before the big event, the shelter was full. Every bed taken. Every cot claimed. So Aaliyah rolled up in the hallway. Back against the wall. Bag under her head. Notebook clutched to her chest like a blanket. She barely slept. Not because she was nervous, but because she was ready. She had come too far to turn back now. The next morning, she arrived at the convention center wearing the same faded jeans, hoodie, and sneakers she'd worn all year. Her project? Not on a fancy cart, but in a plastic tub, taped together, carried in both arms. Other students rolled in with sleek displays. Trifold boards printed in high gloss. iPads. Laptops. Coordinated outfits. Some even had teams wearing matching shirts. Aaliyah stood alone. No designer logos. No tech sponsors. Just a backpack, a notebook, and pure determination. She didn't try to hide who she was. She didn't pretend. She just waited quietly until they called her name. Contestant number 27, Aaliyah Brooks. She stepped onto the stage. The judges glanced at her, a mix of curiosity and quiet doubt. Who was this kid? Where was her team? Why did her project look like it came from a junk drawer? Then, she spoke. Her voice was steady. Confident. Clear. Good afternoon. My name is Aaliyah Brooks. This device is called SolarPure. It runs entirely on sunlight. And it can purify up to 5 gallons of dirty water per day. The cost to build one? Under $10. It uses recycled parts and solar energy to power a compact filtration system. I designed it so kids, especially in shelters, in rural towns, even in developing countries, can have access to clean, safe drinking water, no matter where they are. And just like that, the room fell silent. No one coughed. No one whispered. Just eyes. Watching. Listening. The judges leaned in. And then. Applause. It started slow. Then built. And then the entire room stood. Students, mentors, teachers, parents, clapping for her. Not because of the duct tape. Not because of the simplicity. But because of the power behind her words. The story hidden in her hands. The heart inside that invention. A few weeks later, something happened that Aaliyah had only dreamed about in the quiet corners of the shelter. She got a letter. Stamped and official looking. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside. An invitation. The finalists for the National Young Innovators Science Award were being flown to Washington, D.C. A full week of recognition, workshops, and an award ceremony. Her fingers trembled. She had never left the state. Never stayed in a hotel. Never imagined that something with her name on it would come with a flight ticket. She packed light. A small backpack. Her notebook. And her invention, carefully wrapped, protected like treasure. She wore a second-hand dress she'd found through a donation box. The tag still had someone else's name in faded ink. Her shoes were borrowed from another girl at the shelter, half a size too small, but she didn't complain. But what she brought with her? That was all hers. Soul pure. The product of cold nights. Of hunger. Of pain. Of resilience. Of belief. The ceremony was held in a grand hall, chandeliers, polished wood floors, photographers, reporters, and rows of students who had become finalists just like her. Some had come with entire teams. Some had matching blazers. Some had proud parents beside them, cheering. Aaliyah stood quietly in her section, hands clasped, heart pounding. No one would have guessed what it took for her to stand there. In the front row, seated with the other educators invited by school districts, was someone unexpected. Mrs. Raymond. Yes. The same teacher who had once shouted at Aaliyah to leave her classroom. The one who told her she didn't belong. Now, seated among VIP guests, wearing pearls and a stiff smile, she sat with her name badge reading. Educator of Record, Lincoln High School. The district had chosen her. Not because she earned it, but because she was attached to the winning school. The irony? It wasn't lost on Aaliyah. Not one bit. Then the lights dimmed. A hush fell over the room. The announcer stepped onto the stage, holding an envelope. He smiled at the finalists, then read the words that would change Aaliyah's life forever. And now, the winner of this year's National Science Award for innovation, impact, and outstanding creativity is... He paused. Looked at the crowd. Aaliyah Thomas. Lincoln High School. The room exploded. Applause. Cheers. Cameras flashing. Standing ovation. Aaliyah stood slowly, eyes wide, trying to take it all in. She walked up to the stage, those tight shoes clicking softly on the floor, head held high. She didn't cry. She didn't stumble. She smiled. Not because of the trophy. Not even for the scholarship. But because she had done it. Her. A girl without a home. Without parents. Without permission to dream, but who dared to anyway. And in the front row, Mrs. Raymond sat frozen. Her face had gone pale. Lips tight. Eyes darting between the applause and the camera crew filming the moment. Embarrassed. Exposed. And very, very quiet. Later, after the ceremony, while guests mingled and winners posed for photos, she approached Aaliyah near the refreshment table. Her smile was stiff. The kind of smile people wear when they know they're supposed to smile, but don't know how. She reached out and said, "Aaliyah, I always knew you had potential." A beat of silence. Aaliyah looked her dead in the eyes. Her voice calm. Steady. Graceful. But sharp as glass. "No. You didn't." She paused. Then added, "But I did." And with that, she turned. Lifted her chin. And walked past her. Like a queen. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with self-respect. The kind that doesn't need applause, because the victory was never about proving anyone wrong. It was always about proving herself right. After Aaliyah stepped off that stage with the trophy in her hand and a storm of applause behind her, something changed. Everything changed. Within 24 hours, her story had gone viral. Headlines blazed across news sites. From homeless teen to science champion. 14-year-old inventor stuns nation with $10 water purifier. Meet Aaliyah Thomas, the girl who refused to give up. Journalists were calling. Talk shows were emailing. Her inbox, once empty, flooded with opportunities. She had never even owned a laptop. Now, every major university in America was reaching out. MIT, Stanford, Howard, Princeton. Each offering her full-ride scholarships. Not because they pitied her, but because they believed in her mind. And it didn't stop there. One nonprofit organization, focused on disaster relief and water safety, reached out with a proposal. We want to mass-produce your invention. We'll call it what you called it, HopeLiora. And we'll credit you as the designer. All profits go into future research. And you'll lead the innovation team. Aaliyah could hardly believe it. This thing she built from scraps, duct tape, and vision was about to help real people in real need. 6 months later, HopeLiora was being tested in shelters, flood zones, rural towns, and even overseas. Aaliyah, now 15, was being flown to global forums to speak on innovation, poverty, and resilience. People who had once ignored her were now standing in line to shake her hand. And what about Mrs. Raymond? Well, her presence at the award show had not gone unnoticed. Clips of her past treatment toward Aaliyah surfaced, recorded by other students, backed by old complaints. The school board launched an investigation. And while it never made headlines, she was quietly asked to step down. No farewell assembly. No thank you card. Just silence. But here's what mattered. Aaliyah never gloated. Never posted about it. Never mentioned her name in interviews. Because that part of her story wasn't important. She wasn't here to drag someone down. She was here to lift others up. In an interview months later, when asked what motivated her through the darkest nights, Aaliyah smiled and said, "It was my mom's notebook. She wrote this one thing. You are meant for more. Don't let this world make you small. I just wanted to make her proud." And she did. Over and over again. By age 16, Aaliyah had patented 2 more inventions. By 17, she was on the cover of Time's Youth of the Year. But when you asked her what she was proud of, she didn't mention awards. Or headlines. Or universities. She simply said, "I go back to the shelters and teach kids who feel invisible. I tell them, your ideas matter. Your voice matters. And your future is yours to build." Aaliyah's story became more than a comeback. It became a blueprint. For every child told they don't belong. For every dreamer working in silence. For every voice that was once dismissed. She proved that brilliance doesn't need perfect conditions. It needs belief. It needs grit. And sometimes, just one chance. While the world had tried to push her out, Aaliyah? She pushed forward. And now? She's not just inventing solutions. She's leading a generation.